నేను చూస్తాను
If you want to remain something about and the others will ask. Sure.
But this, I have observed that this event track is very different from all other parallel events happening as part of this digital. How did you?
So we have a partnership with EAF to focus on the innovation-led startup companies to engage in the tech for good sectors. Agri tech is one of them. We do sustainability, climate tech. I'm not sure you might have seen us do a lot of events with TIE and all of that, right? But this is more around the social impact organizations. And so for instance, we did something on the World Food Day last month. And then we did one on aerospace. So we work with all the enablers. In fact, I met on today from the last 4 days. And we need to do many more in Hyderabad. So I have to find out what the vision is and then accordingly do it.
Okay, so primarily through EAF is what?
The tech for good part. So we are very collaborative basically.
Because even the event teams is commonly influenced for the American democracy.
So around media tech communication, impact, change making makers. In fact, I've been calling entrepreneurs as change makers.
Yeah.
Because they do create jobs and everybody watching the meetings, we just need to connect this around.
I was wondering what was the one. There was the
Okay,
one that needs to be on the team. Next time you'll need 3.
The financial sector typically doesn't have as many, right? Or I'm wrong?
I
Agriculture
can't
also
speak
has.
for everybody, but we do have a more than the average. But around 40% of the people in India.
Keep up this the financial sector. Yeah, just talking about the financial sector. I mean, otherwise it would have
We have 16, so we are a 2x flagship fund.
60% women.
I think we will take a better action.
I think they would. Yes, yes, especially at
This meeting is being recorded.
He gave me his number and asked me to ping me. Then he connected me more than 4 VCs. Just a single communication, single ask, honest ask, because I told him that I'm not well versed with the VC domain and I definitely need function. So by his effort, within 3 months, we was able to raise the date. So that is the thing which connection can do, the magic for us. Even he also told us who are connection is the largest asset given. Yes, I agree.
Well, you should be connected with you. Hi, Keith. So,
Hi.
yeah, I think we just wait in a few minutes. Hey, when I have to see you.
Yeah, our voices audible?
Yeah.
So we have the panelists and we have some guests here. So I'm just going to share a quick introduction and the flow of the session. We're going to talk about what is Mixer, the format, right? A quick sort of housekeeping stuff. Then we will have the DEF founder Osama Manzar giving the keynote address, right, for 10 minutes. Right after that, we will have 5 startups pitching in the order of Cook Clean Foods and Private Limited, Kids Health Food, MM Agri Inputs, Verdant Impact, and Saurus Aerospace. Right? That's the flow of the session, right? Yeah. Hi, honestly, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can just click got it. There's a pop-up on your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, you good?
Sure.
Okay, so we have our keynote speaker as well, Osama Manzar, who just joined in. And so a brief introduction, and we request all of you to be on mute. When you have your time to pitch, you could pitch. Again, we'd like to welcome you all to the Mixer session in Agri-Tech. Mixer is a format of engagement where we have innovation-led companies showcasing themselves, followed by inputs, thought leadership, discussions around how one could add value to the sector, as well as the trends and insights and those individual companies who want to scale and grow. Right? So we will begin this with Osama's keynote address, and will be followed by 5 startups, and this will repeat the order of startup pitches. There will be Cook Clean Foods, then Kids Health Foods, MM Agri Inputs, Verdant Impact, Saurus Aerospace, and I also share with you the domain experts who are here. Right? Apart from Osama Manzar, we also have Sai Pramod, the business head at Caspian Debt, the team equity team. We have Vijay Babra, who is the Senior Director of Startup Innovation at eHub. He's also here. And we have Mr. Manoj Agarwal, the co-founder and managing partner at C Fund. He'll be joining us virtually. Hi Manoj, thanks for joining us on short notice. And
Really pleasure to be part of this.
and we also have Mr. Oscar Farah, partner and co-founder at Dana Pharma Network, who will join us a little later. Okay. So we'll start off with Osama's address.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon to everyone. Delighted that all of you agreed or found time to be here. It's a high-sounding word of keynote, but I would just like to say that we requested Mixer to hold a session here in Digital Citizen Summit. Also to relate that agriculture matters a lot, and and technology is not leaving us alone. And you guys are being a startup, always trying to innovate something or the other to give us a solution for a larger problem, right? What we usually see is that in most of the time when tech people bring this solution, it may lack a lot of social nuances. And it's also very tech oriented rather than people oriented, and agriculture is extremely people oriented, and a lot of local nuances are required. And this entire 3 days summit is also about digital citizens, citizenry and the power of the people, and how we are losing out on common in the internet and so on and so forth. And agriculture, we have more than 200 million people who do, direct agriculture, and none of us can survive without them, because they are the people who feed us. And if digital is, and they are the most digitally divided, by the way. And when you take agri-tech, are you really thinking of their on the wrong side of the digital divide, or on the wrong side of the digital skill, or on the wrong side of the digital, literacy, and something like that. And therefore, this session is very important for all of us who want to learn from your presentation, from your innovation. And I'm glad that T-Hub, who is hosting us, has also found time to be here in this room to see that what they are hosting in the other side of this wall is equally, innovative, to learn something from them, and vice versa.
You can mute yourself because your voice.
Yeah. So that's all I want to say. We would be very happy to contribute in any way that is possible to make your innovation as relevant as possible to solve the larger problems of the society. We always say that farmers are the most disadvantaged people, and yet we can't live without them. How technology can actually help them. So thank you very much, and let's get going, because you guys are the focus of the day.
Great, thank you so much for setting the context. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have the first startup pitch. So do we have cook clean foods available?
Easy is from Cook Clean?
Yeah, I'm there.
Great, let us know if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So,
We have 5 minutes, GP. Okay.
Sure. Hello everyone, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share and tell the story of my startup, which is Cook Clean. It stands for Kitchen UNTT's Clean Eating Journey. I'm a mompreneur, and the reason I started this venture is because healthy eating is always a concern for most of us, and we are unable to get the products that we need, which are healthy and clean label. So this is a conscious and compassionate specialty pack, which is plant-based. And we are very happy to share that we have been incubated in IND NSR cell, IIMR, which is Military Cell Center. You can change the slide, Partasi. So what is my vision and mission? The vision is to build a community of skillful eaters, which means people who are aware of what this is all about, so that we build a sustainable culture, and also we can promote the well-being of individuals. So while I make these products which are healthy and tasty, the whole idea is to provide a holistic approach of well-being. We are trying to empower people by, spreading awareness about what is plant-based lifestyle, as well as what are the healthier choices that they have. So this is our mission. Next slide. So the problem, the reason that I started that venture, like you can see, the parents, especially the mothers, they send me these feedbacks that, these are the problems that they are facing because the kids at this era and this generation are eating a lot of junk food. And so then we realize the importance of what Cook Clean is doing. We are promoting healthy eating by our products and by spreading the knowledge and educating people. So even in a cosmopolitan city like Bangalore, the struggle is real. The food products are loaded with chemicals and preservatives, and we are trying to bring traditional food which is plant-based and which is also absolutely free from preservatives and chemicals. And we are trying to spread the awareness about it. Next slide. So how we did that? Now here comes the digital part of it. We have launched a platform which is called acode.com, where we are connecting urban customers with the various vendors across the India who are making these plant-based food products which are absolutely free from preservatives and chemicals, and they are made in a very, very traditional handcrafted way. These are plant-based, and that is what we put on cookclean.com. We also promote our products through Instagram, basically social media, so that we can reach out to our urban customers. Along with this, why I call it as holistic solution, because we are also reaching out to corporates and schools and colleges and educating them about what healthy eating is all about. Next slide. Next slide. So this is the impact we give: health, happiness, and trust. You can see that the first line of my presentation said from one of the customers is that if there is one brand I can completely trust is Cooking. So I'm very happy that we are able to do that. We are changing the mindset of parents and we are changing the mindset of kids especially. And then at the other end, we are impacting the farmers because I've reached out to different FPOs where we are procuring raw material and products from them. Next slide. This is my team. I'm the founder. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist, also a plant-based athlete coach. I've worked in various corporates like IBM, AIG, and my co-founder, who is a techie, has 16 years of experience. So we complement because I'm good in marketing and sales, and he manages all the technical things. And the reason we started this venture is because of our daughter. He's also my husband. My co-founder is also my husband. So we are. The reason we started this venture is because we wanted to give healthy food to our daughter, and the same concept then move forward for other kids also. Next slide. When it comes to the market size, we are targeting $1 trillion USD for the people who are concerned about their health. We focus our target audience is basically the millennials in India who have young kids and who are conscious about eating, and they are making choices for conscious living. So, and their average annual income is more than around 10 lakhs. So this is our target audience, and also we target the vegan community of the different cosmopolitan cities. Next slide. So what is our value proposition? Number one, most of the time we think that healthy food is boring, so we make sure that every food that comes out from Cooking is not boring at all. We provide authentic nutrition information because we don't want to mislead our customers. Being a nutritionist, it's my profession and job to make sure that every information that goes on the product is clearly communicated, and we don't do any false marketing claims. We are truthful, we are clean label. Clean label means we do not add any preservatives or chemicals, irrespective of whatever food product that we are making. Next slide. So this is what we have achieved. We launched our website and incorporated our company in 2021. We got selected in IIM Bangalore, followed by Google Startup, and then followed by M-Grade NutriHub IIMR. Till now, we have completed 7,000 orders. We have sold, have made a sales of 75 lakhs, all bootstrapped. We have around 4,500 direct customers, and we are targeting most of the corporates, and we are very happy to share that millet-based products is what we are making, and we have almost, we have almost sold around 54,000 of laddus and sweets, which are absolutely healthy. Next slide. So my strength is that I'm a certified nutritionist, and that is what I focus on: personalized approach to address everybody's issues. And the weakness is being in Bangalore, it is a labor-intensive work, so we are looking for reaching out to more and more people in villages where we can empower them and we can get our work done. And opportunities, there is a market that is rising, a plant-based market and vegan market is rising. Also, unfortunately, lifestyle diseases are rising and they can only be handled with eating healthy. No medicine can actually work to solve problems like thyroid, diabetes, and PCOD and PCOS. What really works is the lifestyle change, and that's our focus. Next slide.
Can we request you to wrap up because we are...
Okay, so the last slide is our revenue model is selling our own products from where we get 90% of our sales. And you can change to the next slide. Another ask, which is the final thing that I would be looking for, is go-to-market strategy to different out of India. Basically, I'm looking to connect to people in US and UAE so that I can reach out to new markets and spread the happiness of health and fitness. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie. A big round of applause. So we will take questions towards the end.
You're on mute. You just unmute.
Yeah. Thanks again, Katie. I'm not sure you heard the clap and applause, but thank you so much. And
thank you.
So we will take questions towards the end. So please say that.
Sure.
And I see your product is also millet-based in the year of millets. So we go to the next startup, which is Kids Health Food. Do you have the founder here?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So, greetings of the day, everyone. This is Sonia Dhawan. I am founder of Kids Health Food, and I am a physiotherapist. And Kids Health Food basically was found with profound concern for healthy eating. Which was born out of my experience in physiotherapy as well as my experience as a mother. So, I'm a solopreneur and these are my support. I have enrolled for the program at IIM Bangalore NSR, and these are my children and my nephew who are my guinea pigs for my kitchen experiments. So after investing a decade in the health sector, I recognized the need to transform convenience treats such as cookies, candies, and chips for children. Because how much ever we try to take or not give them, they will ultimately take it. So I try to hide nutrition in their favorite treats. And along with that, the challenge basically was not just healthy snacks. It was the fact that kids don't accept the health. They find it boring or they find it not very tasty or appealing. So I believe the ultimate solution, we have been talking about digital literacy here, but the ultimate solution lies in nutritional literacy for children. So, our mother's aspiration is very clear. They want to provide healthier version of these treats only if the child accepts it. And like we all know, when Kinder Joy is not the most delicious chocolate of the world, but at the same time, kids, it captivates children with the surprise toy element, and that surprise element pulls the kids. So our vision extends beyond mere healthy snacks, and it aims to incorporate STEM activities related to nutrition, which will foster lifelong healthy relationship with the food. So I'm in a pre-revenue stage, and until in the initial stages, I have conducted interviews with nearly 20 mothers. And I have carefully evaluated certain survey responses, which made me deeply understand the problem and why there is a need for a solution. So now I've been working on product development, where I have contacted various food technologists, and I've been working in in collaboration with food tech institutes and finalized with 2 SKUs. And I'm in the process process of taste testing and nutritional labeling for the same. The upcoming stages will involve intensive work on the sampling, taste testing, then nutritional labeling, and setting production SOPs, and which will be followed by marketing, branding, and launching. So, despite existing competition, how we differentiate ourselves is we focus on age-specific nutritional literacy along with the gestation development. So, from a financial perspective, the goal is to operate within the MRP of 500 per unit. This has been taken out from the surveys and the interviews I've taken, how much a mother would be willing to spend. Then this kit would contain somewhere around 5 variety of snacks with different flavors and textures for gestation development, along with engaging activity, a STEM activity around nutrition, which will give literacy to children and empower them to take better decisions relating to nutritional food. And to break even at this point, an annual sales target of 4,000 to 5,000 per units is there. So, Kids aims to launch as a D2C brand, which allows for closer customer relationship and development of additional features. So, this approach will lay the groundwork for potential collaborations with educational institutes or nutritionists and even birthday return gift curators. And as the customer loyalty grows, we plan to introduce a subscription-based model where a set of delightful assortments with surprise flavors and surprise STEM activities will be delivered at the doorsteps, which will create a loyal evangelists for the brand. So thank you.
Yeah. So, so we have a next presenter. Honestly, do we have?
Am I audible?
Yes, okay, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a next speaker from Agri Inputs. Is the founder available here?
So, due to some reason, the founder had to back out in the last minute. So, can we move to the
Verda Impact. And we also have Soros Aerospace. So, are any of these founders here?
Yeah, Manish is here.
Manish is here? Okay.
Yeah.
Manish, are you able to hear us?
I think Manish dropped out from this call. Let me just check. In the meantime, can we start with the next plan and a discussion?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll just do a quick round of introductions with various panelists. In fact, we will want you to introduce yourself and also let us know what are some of your reactions to the first two pitches that you've had so far. You know, some broader trends, some broader insights that you may have. I'd like to start first with Shamini Kala.
Hi, thank you for the two presentations. I'm Shalini and I mostly spend my professional life in agriculture and rural development. I come very much from the agriculture side. I've also spent some time looking at technological tools for farmers. But I come from the development aspect, not from the commercial financial one. Should I give my comments now?
Yeah, you can give your first comments.
So, the second pitch, it's very early, but it seems to be a good idea. And I'm particularly happy about the research you're doing, and I think you should do more research. If you're going to pitch to someone for funding, then you need more research. And that is a very good thing, that you are doing. And I like that idea as a mother, it appeals to me. Some of the comments that I'm going to give you are also related to the first one, so I'll go to the first one now. I think in the first one, the purpose is very clear. I think you could actually say less about your purpose. You repeated yourself many times. I think the audience becomes very clear about where you're coming from. So purpose is very clear. You are an expert, you are a nutritionist, so there is a lot of credibility around that also. So that is also not an issue, and you don't need to repeat that again and again. my question to you is from the perspective of market. You mentioned something about you're looking at 10 lakh annual salary people. Okay, so now only 5% of Indian population is above 10 lakh or salary, which is fine. I don't think it matters. There's still many people in that 5%. You also said vegan. So I would, as somebody who's going to invest, would want to know what percentage of that population is vegan. Because vegan is very small again. So I would like some numbers there. I'm sure you can figure the numbers out, but that would be something that I would like to see. The other thing I think is that you're probably looking very much at the urban markets, so it would be good to mention that, and then again numbers from the urban perspective. I mean, I should leave this to the financial people, but if I was to pitch, I would like my numbers, and that comes from my training in economics. So I would like those numbers, and I think you should be able to produce that numbers easily. That is my sense. From the perspective of farmers, when you are talking about going backwards and integrating with the farmers, how many FPOs have you worked with? What are the number of farmers these FPOs comprise of? And again, then what is the size? Size in terms of quantities and in terms of values. Those are the questions that I would immediately ask you. If you want to pitch and say that, we are working with the farmers. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I don't think it's necessary for you to have a very strong and very large impact kind of relationship at the back end. I mean, at the front end itself, the idea is very powerful, and there must be a lot of takers for healthy food. There's no doubt about that. All you need to do, in my opinion, is to be precise about your numbers, and I think that would help anybody to make a decision about whether they want to put their funding in this operation. For kids health food, I think some of these comments will hold, but you are still very early in the stage of development. I'm just going to ask you to keep these in mind as well as I'm concerned. So that is it. But best of luck to both of you.
Great. Thank you for your inputs. We will have next Mr. Manoj Agarwal. He's joining us virtually. He couldn't make it here. He's the managing partner at C Fund. Manoj, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Pleasure. Thanks, Vinay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So, pleasure to be part of this. Just to talk briefly about myself. As a subject, agri and food is of interest to me. I've been part of a company earlier where we went into food processing, and I ran a large gherkin processing unit where we used to do contract farming, process gherkins, pickle them, and export all over the world. It's not something which is consumed much in India. But then the sector is food. So I've been on that side of the table, and now I run a fund where we invest in technology ventures. And it is very much of interest to us. We have made a couple of investments, and one from the fund where we have invested in a company which works with banks and who helps manage the collateral assets of farmers, in which recently NABARD put a very large amount. Another venture where I personally invested is on the agri, like the whole agri cycle, like the arts of the world, company called Falca, doing very good work in Karnataka and various parts of the country. So coming back to the pitches, both of these ventures, I will not qualify them as agri, but more on the food side. In the first one, what I would have liked more about, Madam covered a lot of areas, just to add to that, maybe a bit more about the product itself. I just heard very broadly about the product, but what has gone into developing that product, what really, research has been done on that side. It's a very crowded space today. Healthy food, millet and all has become fashion. There are multiple players, trying to take pie of a very small market. So what is going to be important is how do you grow the market also, right? And how do you remain cost efficient? Even 5% of India is very, people are very, cost conscious. So that is going to be very important in terms of understanding the product. Though you are a technologist, but you have to talk more about that. What has gone into it, besides certainly the how do you connect to the farmers and all of that. And then certainly how do you market it, how do you package it, what is the life, all of that is very important. Food is a very difficult area, so we have to understand very deep. It's a very personal subject for a lot of people. A lot of us like food made at home and very local also. So as far as the second one is concerned, like Madam said, very early, and when it comes to kids, people are even more careful. So there are various certifications, development, whatever, addressing various tastes and requirements of parents in different parts of the country. What market are you really looking at? There are multiple players trying to do this in small ways. Nobody has been able to scale it up big. So I think scaling is going to be a challenge, besides working deeply on the development side of things. Those are my few comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Can I just make one comment
Sure.
which is related?
Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
Yes. Yes.
One comment that is related to what Manoj said about the packaging and things like that. One question that I had for you was, for the first one was, how are you going to verify your products? Because you said that you are going to resource from various people in different locations who are making these products. Now the process of verifying that the ingredients and the processes followed are as per what you're saying, how are you going to do that? That is going to be a very, to my mind, would be a challenge. And like I said, it is difficult. Food is easy. Everyone eats food, so it looks like it's an easy market or available market. But it is also, it can be difficult in terms of how you ensure that your product is of quality and is made according to what you have said, especially if you don't have control over the production.
Sure. That makes sense. So what we also do now is we'll just get a context from the ecosystem enabler. So we'll ask Vijay Barbara from T-Hub to share his inputs and also some of the trends on how you've been supporting the startups here.
Sure, thanks Vinay. Hi, my name is Vijay. I'm Senior Director for Startup Innovations at T-Hub. I have been this subject is very close to me because I have been a food entrepreneur myself before I got into the ecosystem with Transcom in 2016 in Hyderabad. At T-Hub, we primarily follow a 6M2P philosophy, which is helping entrepreneurs with money, mentoring, market access, methodology, motivation, manpower, policy, and partnerships. With respect to methodologies, we have very strong programs for startups, right from product development to MVP and MVP to market access and funding readiness program. We are also coming up with a very aspirational T-scale program, which happens to be one of its kind in India, where the idea is to take startup from the Series A level from X to 10X. We are a tech-agnostic ecosystem player. We work with Agri, we work with FinTech, we work with EV, semiconductors, space tech, etc. Some of the stars of T-Hub has been like Darwinbox or Skyroot or Zuba Space, you might know about. That's about us, and we also help startups with respect to India market access, helping startups get business with actual customers, and also international market access for any startups who is looking to expand globally. We help them out, and also startups which are into different geographies. We help them to explore India market. That's briefly about us. One feedback about the first founder is that you're looking to go global, but with respect to the kind of revenue that you're making in the B2C space, it's very, very low. Please rethink about it before you start focusing on expanding beyond India. 75 lakhs of revenue is definitely too small in terms of going out.
Sure, great. I think what we'll do is we have more startup services will happen towards the end. And also, I'll quickly also get inputs from, so we have Sai Pramod from Caspian, and your colleague Arman is also here, so if you'd like to share the equity point of view, please feel free to pitch in, but over to you, Sai.
Sure. Thanks, Vinay, and thanks for taking time to make the presentations as well.
Yeah. Just if you could also share a little bit about Caspian Debt.
Yeah, sure. So I lead business at Caspian Debt. We are a NBFC based out of Hyderabad, where we provide debt funding to early stage companies. Like when the entire market is of course focused on equity, we realize that debt to these companies is a very under penetrated market, and it's probably more required as well, because the kind of companies we deal with, they typically dilute a lot of equity by the time they reach a certain scale. So debt as a capital, that's what we try to help the founders, investors also understand that it could be a good capital mix to help them achieve scale. We've been in the business for about 10 years and we've disbursed more than 3,000 crores. We have an active portfolio of about 150 companies where we support across. Our focus is on companies which are creating a positive social or environmental impact, and we follow a sectoral approach where we work on sectors like food and agri being one of our biggest sectors, clean tech, healthcare, education, water and sanitation, women-focused enterprises, microfinance, and other NBFCs which provide lending to MSMEs. So that's like very quickly in terms of what we do. And with respect to these two, I will probably not go specific, but at least one thing which I'm happy about, I know that other startups are there still waiting to pitch, but probably 100% women-founded enterprises so far, right? So, one common theme, at least what we observed in our portfolio in food and agri, and what I could also see here is that it comes out of your own experience when you try to build a business idea, right? So that's clearly evident here, and even within the kind of portfolio, like Osama had also mentioned, that it's one of the biggest communities, we can all relate very well, but try to work towards it. There's definitely a lot to make things happen. Another thing which I would have liked to see is little bit of competitor analysis as well, when specifically an investor or anybody rather trying to keep your product, it can be your own customers as well. How are you placed differently from your competitors? So one aspect about competitor analysis would have definitely helped people whoever want to either make an investment or work with your company, make a more informed decision. Other aspect which we generally, or I particularly look when I look at pitches or even companies which we evaluate, is do the founders understand the kind of risks, the segment, or the specific product? It's like you said, Vinay, they are change makers. I call them superhumans, entrepreneurs, because it's not easy navigating what you do on a day in and day out basis, but it would also be good to people who go through your pitches to understand what risks you see, and do you identify them, and how do you plan to mitigate or go through those aspects as well. So of course, apart from what has already been told by Shalini and Vijay, these having little bit of numbers, plan, how do you achieve scale, those 2 to 3 aspects would focus on the apart from what I told you.
Great. We also have Mr. Nitesh Bharatwaj here. Yeah. So thanks for joining us.
And what we are doing is that using social media or using digital tools, we are creating leaders, and last year we had 16 elected representatives in classrooms because of artificial intervention. What we are offering is that we are actually raising the aspiration of the youth through the communications, especially hyperlocal communications. And especially when I am talking about the youth who is marginalized, who has no say, who has no voice. We are talking about people who don't have access to any kind of internet, any kind of network. So that's how we are working, and we are trying to bridge the gap with the government and the people with the help of the youth. About these two pictures, I really like both of them. I'm not exactly the domain expert, or I have not much experience on agriculture, but I think that this is very important what they are working on, and I really like one of the lines which says that this is that we do count our calories, which I also do, but we don't count our chemicals. I really like that tagline. I don't know.
The reason why I brought you here is also the bridge to understand the agri-tech and agriculture, and there's a lot of rural, semi-urban locations. So, I'll go to Manoj now. Manoj, would you like to share some of the investments that you have made in this space, and what kind of agri-tech categories excite you? Because you had mentioned that there's more to agri-tech, right? So. Yeah, you're mute.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. So, these are still early days of our investments in agri-tech. One of our early investment in agri-tech, like I mentioned, is a company which actually works with banks and helps banks monitor agri assets, collateral assets, which helps them to probably then finally disburse loans to farmers in a better way. In fact, recently, we invested way back in 2019, and recently they raised a Series A, and NABARD Ventures participated in it in a big way. So that falls in the agri-tech category. And personally, I have invested in a company called Falca, which something like what they also the world are doing. They are in the whole value chain. They work with farmers closely, help them with inputs, work with farmer organizations, and then they buy the inputs from them at a better price and sell it largely to corporates. So they are very strong in Karnataka and have entered various other states. But from an investing perspective, we are looking at various opportunities in this space, and I feel we are still at a very early cycle in agri-tech. So a lot of work which has happened in agri-tech, if you see, has happened largely on this whole space of farmer connect, the value chain, buying from farmers, selling to mandis or to end users. So a lot of work has happened in that area. But in core technology, I believe there is still a lot of work to happen. And sometimes people are missing the point that, a lot of platforms have been developed. They say so many farmers have been onboarded, but is farmer tech savvy? So there you need a lot of handholding. You may onboard millions of farmers on the platform, but there's a lot of handholding on ground work required, which some of the companies have been able to achieve. The other thing is on the technology side, like there are companies working on soil health, there are companies working on satellite imaging to give those inputs. So what to grow, how to grow, what is right to grow in what season, on the disease management side, on improving the yield side. So I feel there's a lot of work still to happen. There's a lot happening. So we are looking at specific opportunities around around the use of core technology, which could be on the seed development side of things, which could be on the IoT side of things, but which is also something which can be very practically implemented. A lot of times we develop technology, but the challenges around implementing it, working closely with farmers, the organizations around farmers, so we have to realize that there are challenges on that side. So these are, I would say, a brief thoughts from my
one of the
side.
questions that we got up here is generally, what is your general investment size, fund size? So,
What stage?
So we are an early stage. Yeah, we are an early stage fund. We come in at seed to pre-series A level. Our first check can be as low as 200K or 1.5 crore. We can go up to 4-5 crore in the first check, but then the betting keep helping the company at various stages. So we then do follow-on investments, across 2 more rounds wherever the opportunity and the company is progressing well. So we can go up to 2 billion overall, in a company through 2 to 3 stages.
Thanks, Manoj. So now we just go to Sai for more before coming back to Shalini. Generally, what are the kind of companies you worked with in this case?
Yeah. So, being of course focused on debt, we do not have any specific liking for what sort of technology, etc. to use. I'll ask my colleague Arman to pitch in later with respect to their agri funds as well. But we look at food and agri as a holistic sector, but we do have a keen focus on agri tech and sustainable agri, being an impact focused.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, so what I was trying to say is that being a debt-focused investor, we have a broader focus on food and agri, while specific technology, etc. I'll ask my colleague Arman to mention in terms of what they look at in terms of equity. But we at Caspian Debt, we do have certain themes which we work on periodically to drive the investment. So, like just yesterday, we launched 2 specific debt funds saying we are looking for investments in agri-tech and sustainable agri. So those are the 2 themes which we picked up and trying to do. Just trying to send out the message within the market as well that there are entities like us who are keen to provide funding to businesses which are creditworthy or doing something meaningful, right? And that gives a sense of confidence to say that there are backers. But overall, we on the debt front, we typically look at companies which are in operational existence for at least 2 to 3 years, because debt as a instrument is very different to what equity is. The companies should be capable of trying to start their servicing of the debt capital as soon as the debt is taken, but we do try some sort of restructuring around that. But we typically provide debt capital in the ticket size between 1 to 15 crores with companies of at least 5 crores of revenue, tenor between 1 to 3 years as such. And we look at entities which are professionally managed, have some sort of equity capital available within the company already, so that they could leverage. We look at what sort of systems and processes. So it's like with these sort of criteria, it is not quite early stage which we do. That's why 2 to 3 years of operational revenue is what we typically look at. But yeah, I think over the last 7 years, like I said, close to about 40% of our portfolio is towards food and agri. That means we have reason to believe that this sector is growing and will continue to grow in the near future.
Yeah, thank you.
Arman, anything specific you want to add on technology or?
Yeah, sure. So at Caspian Equity, we invest out of 2 funds. So we have one Pan India fund which is investing in P-Series A round. So these are smaller checks which we do up to 6-7 CR. Here we focus on improving the productivity of the farmers. Or so these are technology solutions which are for the farmers. Or it can be something like agri fintech. So recently we invested in Kiwi, which is an agri fintech platform, and they are providing financing to the farmers. And then we also invested in a company, Balwan Krishi, which provides low-cost implements, agri implements to farmers. So many of these farmers don't have access to implements by Mahindra or TAFE, etc. So these are very expensive, 1 lakh plus. So we are kind of focusing on providing these affordable solutions and creating a social impact. So that's the main idea of our funds. We have another fund which recently got launched, which is focused on Northeast, based out of Assam. So that is also more on growth equity. So we'll be investing in something like tea industry, something like silk. So because those livelihoods are also getting impacted. And obviously we'll look at the founders, experienced founders, someone who have, let's say, gone through the cycle of another company, etc. And we are much more focused on unit economics. And we generally typically invest in a revenue generating company, maybe not EBITDA positive, but at least gross margin level they should be positive.
Yeah, we've got fantastic insights on investments from the early stage to the growth and season stage. It's already hard to start a startup, but many of them are also in the social sectors as an NGO. And how do they go about? What are the pitfalls, Shalini, do you think they would have when they want to start something in the agri space?
So there are lots of challenges. Agriculture is a very complicated and uncertain, I would say. Uncertainty is what really is remarkable about agriculture, and we have as yet in this country not been able to resolve that very much, because much of our agriculture still remains rain-fed. So our irrigation facility is not as much. I mean, you can hear about stories from, say, Israel or even some parts of southern Europe where they do very high precision agriculture, for instance for wines, which is extremely lucrative. But to be able to do something like that in India is extremely challenging because of the uncertainty and the fact that there isn't enough information and there isn't enough predictable information, both for farmers and for investors, because of course it's not available for farmers. The positive aspect, like others have mentioned in case of India, is that we are a very large country with a lot of arable land with many different kinds of climatic zones, so we can grow many different things. We do grow many different things. And if I look at the domestic market, what has changed since the end of last century is that incomes have increased tremendously. So even though the percentage of income that people spend on food reduces as incomes increase, but we are now eating foods that we were not used to eating, in the sense we were not eating them as much. For instance, high value foods like nuts and dried fruit, we were probably not eating it as much as we were spices, because they are expensive. So we are eating more expensive food. Even if you go to look at wheat and cereals, grains, we are eating more expensive. We want millets, even though millets are production-wise, millets is not as much, and that's why the price is high. But we want to eat that because also awareness has increased, but mainly because incomes have increased. So that is where the opportunity lies. But please, for any startup, I would say, please do your research well. There are farmers who are ready to get into the market, but they don't have an idea. They want to sell their produce. You either need to identify farmers who are market oriented, or you will need to put in effort to make them market oriented. I can tell you of stories from my own experience where we encouraged farmers to grow coffee, because in our mind coffee market is fairly stable among agriculture commodities. It's easier to get loans. I mean, plantation crops or tea, coffee, sugar cane, it's easier to get finance and all that. So this in the northeast they grew this thing, beautiful crop, don't know where to sell. So there are these kind of things that are, so please, it is going to be challenging. It is not going to be like producing or making toothbrushes or something like that, soaps or something like that. For same is true of the investors. I have also been part of programs where we were trying to improve this connect between investors, agri-investors, banks especially there, There used to be something called, you guys were not even born then. There used to be something called agriculture high-tech branches of public sector acts. There used to be those things. But if you looked at how they assessed agriculture-based proposals, it was difficult for them because the indicators that you use for an industrial project cannot apply to the agriculture. What is inventory in agriculture? Suppose you are doing a floriculture. What is stock? There is no. If there is stock, it is all loss. You can't harvest your flowers and say I have stock. No, there is zero. It means zero. It means nothing. So I think there is learning on both sides, but I think it has to be driven by us urban people. It has to be in some way driven by us because farmers have less information than us. Believe me, they have more information about growing than us. Much more than any scientist, I would say that. We have to be humble about that. But they don't have information about the markets. They don't have the information about how to get to markets, financing, processing. So those challenges then become challenges of the startups. So, and I'm saying this with a lot of positivity, and I'm not being overly optimistic, I'm also being realistic because I've seen startups in agriculture come up and doing well and farmers doing well. People doing well, I mean the investors doing well, the promoters doing well who can typically be non-farming background people who have never lived in a village or could be farming background people, and there are also farmers who are connecting with this. But it is a process, and I think Manoj would know this with gherkins because gherkins, I have some experience with gherkins also, but gherkins are grown by, and they started by grown by, I think they're still grown by farmers who are very poor. Very poor, but the gherkin companies had to do all the heavy lifting for them. And that they did because there was a assured international market. There still is. It is a cutthroat market. It's not easy for them. It's a cutthroat market, but there is a market, and I'm sure there are certain, the margins are good enough for them to be doing this. So there is some. I'm just the fact that I'm telling you about these are not pitfalls. These are just challenges that you will need to keep in mind, and I think they can be overcome, and profits can be made on both sides.
You mentioned about market research, right?
Yeah.
And there are multiple domains, right? A couple of months ago, we hosted the Netherlands delegation of horticulturalists. And then we had the World Coffee Conference, the G20 went last month. Were you there?
Yeah, I wasn't there, but okay. I know about it. Yeah.
Right. So when some of the young innovators, change makers want to go about doing their market research, any tips, any best practices should they go out?
At the moment, you get a lot of information online. I'll tell you when I was a student or later also, we have to go to the mandi directly. Keep going to the mandi every day for months and try to get information out of the traders and also farmers, but farmers sometimes it was not that easy because you have to travel a lot and all that. But these days a lot of information you get online. Please do your online research first. Even a lot of market research agencies are publishing, but please also go to the field. Especially if you've been an urban person. I totally grew up in a big city. I did have, because I used to go to my daddy's place and all that, so we had some exposure, but I had no idea of how these people live and how they do their agriculture and what is their sense of the market and all that. So startups who are basing their main operation on dealing directly with farmers. If you're dealing directly with farmers, you absolutely must go and spend some time with farmers, understand what is happening there. So you will get a good sense of how to understand the numbers that you see online. You see a lot of numbers, I think it's not that difficult to get online. Of course, your target audience, you must do your customized research, you must do if you know. Yeah. And with FPOs especially, again, it's much touted, and we want to be very optimistic about FPOs, but it's again not very easy. Like one of the things that Manoj also mentioned about their IT awareness and things like that. I don't want to comment on their IT awareness. I just want to say this, that their connect with the markets is weak. So they don't understand us and we don't understand them. So it's important to understand where you are getting your stuff from. For instance, Food Clean maybe doesn't need to understand farmers very much, because if you're not directly working with farmers, it's okay. You can also, there are businesses in agriculture where the entrepreneurs focus only on the mandis. They don't even go to the farmers. If I'm I'm a trader of menthol oil. If I produce menthol oil, I don't go to the farmer, I just buy from the mandi. But if I go to the farmer, I can get direct supplies, I can reduce my cost, I can have more certainty also. I can do that, So, but it depends on where you want to operate. If you want to operate like that, then you definitely must know, you must go to the field also to get your sense of qualitative information, as we call it. Quantitative you can get from either online or you do customized research, or both.
Quantitative online, qualitative, you have to be on the field.
Absolutely.
To the stakeholders.
In this case, qualitative is very important, and stakeholders, towards stakeholders.
Because you had also mentioned about earlier banks did not know how to evaluate agri companies.
Yes.
So one of the things that, because in fact we spoke to some of the CDPP kind of organizations.
I think Farhan is there.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to know is how do you go about doing your due diligence on the companies, say from Caspian Gas, how do you go about doing your due diligence of agri companies?
Yeah, so one of the key things with respect to our philosophy is that we tend to asset-light companies or first generation entrepreneurs. So these are companies which do not have a lot of collateral security, or even the entrepreneurs would not have. So we provide collateral-free loans. I think that's one of the biggest stumbling block for any public sector bank, that okay, you don't try to, as Shalini has mentioned, understand business, but okay, you have inventory of 10 crores, we are now ready to do too, but that inventory is as good as lost money, right? If you are, it's there for a lot of days. We know that post-harvesting is not very great, still, lots needs to be done over there. So we provide collateral free, but our assessment is primarily on the business model. We try to understand whether the entrepreneur knows what they are doing, whether, and not just entrepreneurs, see, especially the food and agri business, there is a potential to achieve a lot of scale. It can't be done by only one or two people. The team also needs to come in. So when we try to make an assessment, we see what is the team supporting the founder's vision, if at all it's there. Do they have the capabilities to bring that together? So, but yeah, fundamentally the business model. Apart from whatever the tech for good, because there's also part of it, the session, this thing, you doing a sustainable business is the only way forward, because that is when any company will be able to stay in the business for long, firstly, and byproduct of that would be impact, right? So trying to have a very keen focus, okay, are you doing business where gross margins are positive? We do look at EBITDA negative companies, but we understand that when somebody is building a business, especially at in this era, it is not possible to probably start off things by doing profitably right from day one. But with a lot of news around startups burning a lot of money, we stay away from that, because we understand that, like for example, if I have to sell a product for 10 rupees by doing 100, it's an easier thing to do. But if I have to spend 3 rupees to sell a product of 10, that is a tough part about the business, and those are the kind of companies which we think are possibly good scaler. But we do look at companies which manage the working capital cycle better. So not to say we are not usually favorable of companies with very long working capital cycles, because long working capital cycle kills a company. If the money is stuck anyway, right? If it could be government you're working with, or if it's private entities you're working with. Companies which are into shorter working capital cycles is what we prefer. We are not very focused on growth. I think that's also one thing, Vinay, which I wanted to bring about. A key aspect of working with enterprises, working on impact, especially food and agri. You are not just trying to build a business, right? You have to deal with farmers, you have to deal with people, you have to deal with regulations, you have to deal with a lot of policies. It is possible that whatever we are doing can backfire sometimes with your intention may be good, that you will go and help out the farmers per se, but like Shalini mentioned, they know a lot more than what we know. If we go with that intention, it's possible that it backfires at some point of time. So there are different elements, especially in food and agri, not just with respect to running your business. So we are not very focused on very high growth companies, at least on the debt front. But you have to achieve some level of growth. So it's not one single factor where we take a decision on how to invest in these sort of companies, but these are, very broad contours on which we work on.
Great. Yeah, I think the way how you go about is very insightful for many entrepreneurs and people who want to get into the space. We have Ashar Farhan here. Would you like to introduce yourself, what you do at Dana Farmers Network in terms of...
No, sure.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I thought I missed you. So the other one, we're looking at market access, right? So the market access part of it is something that, because we cover the finance, in terms of market access, what kind of markets do you think innovators, how do you go about the market access and market discovery, apart from primary research?
I'm not the best person to answer this, but I'll again look at it from the perspective of, from the farmer's perspective. Okay? Now, typically, when the farmers want to sell, the problem that I mentioned before, produce first and then start thinking of the market. That is, I think it's proven again and again. You have to look at the market first. Now, because also the market is changing, like I said. People's, incomes are changing, their tastes are changing. Coffee, for instance, I think a very small percentage, but a very small percentage of population. All big cities, small cities, tier 3 cities also. If you go to places like Surat and Indore, also you will find totally, gourmet coffee cafes. It is amazing, for a person who lives in a big city to think, okay, in Indore, Surat, but there is Patna and these kinds of places. So those changes are happening. Farmer is, in case of coffee, I would say, because coffee trade is very well established. There are traders, who sort of are, keep track of these things. But the rest of the commodities, let me take an example. For instance, mango. Mango, India grows about between 50 to 60% of the world's mangoes. Okay? Our processing is less than 1% of these mangoes. We waste, I don't know how much percentage, but there is a number which goes around 30 to 40% is wasted. We don't know how to store them in a controlled way, like we store apples. Apples can still be stored for many days, many weeks. But we don't know how to store mangoes. So when they come in the market, the one thing that could have been done was to process. And there is demand for pulp. There is demand for pulp abroad. And yet, you don't see, very many entrepreneurs in this. There are some, I'm sure there are some, but the big one is actually NDDP. NDDP does of this 1%, most of it is NDDP is doing it. So, in terms of, understand for any startup, I want just for them to understand the farmer does not know how to approach this. So you will have to understand, you will have to figure out what your market is and then go to the farmer and see how their product can either be customized, processed, or the product they may even have to change the product. it's not as if farmers are not learning. Farmers are learning. I'm talking of the general this thing. Farmers, I'm sure farmers go to Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Pune, they are learning. They are learning because of some startups like this started selling, or because they, for instance, they understood that yellow and red peppers sell for much more than green ones, so they started growing them in polyhouses. So there are farmers like that, you know, I mean, but that is a very small percentage. So any startup, even if you sell only fresh vegetables, I mean, there is a market for chemical-free, organic, fresh vegetables sent to your doorstep, and there are people who are, it's a small market, there are people who are ready to pay a price for it, and we pay a price for it. So there are, the startup has to understand this market change, and has to take this look for what is available in the agri space and how to work with the farmer institutions, because FPOs can be one. Traders, there are lots of traders, you know, they can work directly with traders. So market access, and for them to then look at their markets, do research, whatever we talked about before, all those that thing they have to do.
So I think Manoj, are you able to hear us? Yes. So one of the things Shalini had mentioned, and even Sai, about mapping the larger ecosystem that we have, and you work with many deep tech entrepreneurs as well who may not be domain experts in farming and agri. So how would you recommend them to, what kind of foundation
somebody is a deep tech founder, how do they work in an, to develop a product which can be useful to the farmers or say the larger agri-tech ecosystem?
Right, exactly, yeah. Bringing technology in.
So yeah, I mean, see, we understand that and if they don't have one did not be a farmer or should have lived on a farmland to develop a product, but they will need to understand the space, right? They will need to work with people who understand that space. I mean, let's say recently we looked at a company, we've been evaluating a company which has developed some interesting tech around soil testing, evaluating, and then doing analytics and giving inputs to farmer on what to grow in what season and stuff like that in that area. So there, the ground level knowledge, if you don't have, you will have to gain, right? And you will have to work with people or organizations which will probably be able to provide that. So that is very important, even if you don't. You did not be a farmer, or you should not have grown on a farmland, that is understandable. So their deeper understanding of the ecosystem around that is important, which they should work on. And then certainly their understanding of the technology itself, and a lot of times you have to integrate with many others, right? Technology is not just like one area. You have to bring in so many inputs, so everybody does not have everything in-house. So you work with various players. So that is important, and at times, sometimes when we come in, we also get involved to some extent to help them in that process. So I don't know if that was very satisfactory, but that is what I was.
Yeah, no, I think value where the investor comes in, it's not just financing, but it's also market access, and I see everybody learning at the same time. So what we'll do is, in fact, I thought I will ask the students to introduce themselves a bit, but we can do that through networking. We have a final set of thoughts from the panelists on because you did speak about tips for entrepreneurs, but also trends in the agri space. In fact, at TIE, we are doing a larger conference end of January around agri fintech. In fact, all of you had mentioned that. So we'd like to start with, Manoj, would you like to start about what areas in agri-tech excite you the most?
So currently, we are looking at, various areas in agri. So we feel that this whole space of, the value chain, where working with farmers, buying the goods, selling it or providing inputs, that there are multiple players. That's a very local thing. You have different players in different cities. That is quite done thing. Many players have got it. So now we are looking at largely into 3 areas. One is on the technology interventions, which will help the farmer or the ecosystem to grow better seeds and stuff like that. One is that. Then the other thing is this whole sustainability. How can farmer do it sustainably? Still our yields are very low, right? Our farmer is like Madam mentioned about decades. So we used to work with very small farmers, but our yields are. I went to Vietnam where on same without any use of technology on same parcel of land, the yield is like 3 times in a country like Vietnam. The way they manage is very different. So sometimes it is also the way you manage the farm better, because that will improve your productivity and your incomes. So I think that is another area. Then agri-fintech certainly is an important area. But again, lending to a farmer is not easy. So you have to bring in again a value chain in between. That how do you provide inputs efficiently? There can be a financing element in that through the buyers or through the input sellers and things like that. So a lot is happening there in agri-fintech, but it has to be, the whole space has to evolve a lot, and we expect that to grow tremendously over the next few years.
Great.
So technology is the core of what we are looking at.
Perfect. I think you mentioned
sustainable growth.
Exactly, sustainable and increasing yields and the examples you gave. Sai, would you like to share your tips?
Same thoughts. Like I said, we launched 2 specific focused on agri-tech and sustainable agri-debt funds. So that's the clear area where 2 specific focus of agri we are focused on, and especially sustainable agri. Personally, I am also quite focused because it not just brings food and agri as a core impact, but climate also, which definitely is one of the overarching themes. Say G20, what has been a very big theme put forward. We launched that biofuel alliance, etc. So many aspects related to climate. So I think sustainability definitely is a theme, and it not just attracts one class of investors who are focused on food and agri, it also attracts another class of investors who want to invest more towards climate related thing, and it's a huge this thing. We see a lot of interest from European markets or even from the US as well, where our companies, I would like to see more companies which are working towards mitigation adaptation. Organic, of course, is one of the biggest things where it not just reduces cost for the farmers because input cost reduces and yield obviously increases as well. Good for the earth as well with reduced chemicals as well. Then we are also looking at wherever the value chain is there, are we providing more sustainable storage solutions at the farm gate? So we funded companies which has solar powered cold storages at the farm gate, etc. So across the value chain, if companies are working towards bringing the aspect about sustainability, it's something we are very keen at.
In fact, the team of our Agri FinTech also includes supply chain and the entire value chain. I'll leave the final word to Shalini, your final tips and thoughts.
So I think Manoj and both the gentlemen have covered most ground. I just want to say one thing which I mentioned before, that most of our agriculture is still grain fed. So I think, I would think, and I've always thought this in the last 20 years, that any service that lets our farmers know when it is going to rain, so weather information, in real time or almost real time, we still don't have it, and I don't know why we don't have it. Because this is something that has been available to many other countries. There are satellites all around, not just our own but others, where this information can easily be provided. Because there are many uncertainties that the farmers face. This is something that we can give him, and then he can deal with the other uncertainties. But weather is a very important issue which they have no control over. The second thing that I want to sort of underline here is that many of the things we tend to borrow from the West, but our agriculture is very different. We are small plots, small holders. We are not big plots, big holders. Even our biggest plots are not big. So, and we need customized solution, which basically means that transaction cost is high. If you want to give customized information to small plots, the transaction cost is very high. But there is no getting away from giving customized information, because agriculture requires customized information. So it may not be one plot, it can be a parcel of 200 plots. And a week later.
I think customized solutions and very different from the West from what we have.
Yes.
With this, I'd like to thank you all. What I'll do is we'll also share the takeaways, the article about it, and we'll have all the pitch decks, not just from this session, but also the previous AgriTech event that we had on World Food Day in October. We'll share those with you as well. And we'll also do some email introductions and matchmaking. And this is just the beginning. It's a sustained set of engagements that we keep having. And thank you again for joining us, and really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have lunch, sir.
So we funded 2-3 companies which does this weather risk management. They work with insurance companies to preempt
So if we take the example of Bihar, a few months ago, there was an examination in just one school, one or two, three centers of the schools were there. It was a teacher's eligibility exam, and for that, the whole district was under internet shutdown. This is their mechanism of selective banning of apps, selective banning of apps and selective banning of internet. But even though for a really small cause, you're going way beyond your limitations. I will come briefly to the work that we do, and then we can come to the alternative if that's all right. So what we do at SFLC, what we have done over the past few years, is we have maintained a data record, maintain a track record of all the internet shutdowns that have taken place in India. And it's baffling to see that in the first 6 months, India has lost $255.2 million in just the first 6 months of 2023. And this is the exact same amount that India had to borrow from World Bank to invest in educational technological groups to help around 350,000 students get jobs. So once at one place you're doing one thing where you're in such a disadvantaged state, we are incurring so much loss, and then you are forced to incur a loan on that. Now, why do I say that it's $255 million? How does this money come? How does this range of money come? Where do we lose this amount of money? The reason for that is almost all of the business entities and even the general public these days rely on digital payments. Not only on digital payments, but also of maintaining their track records, maintaining their orders. All of this is done today by our digital means. Now, while we boast about our Digital India platform, our unified payment systems, we at the whims and fancies of our own self remove this very good platform that we made and we make ourselves limbless. And that's why we occur such kind of loss. Now, at present, up until now, since we started working, we have 771 internet shutdowns. In India, last year we have topped the list of internet shutdowns in the world. And this is us comparing to the war-torn countries, where even in the situations of grave injustice and war crimes, one of the most fundamental rights of an individual is saved, and that is the right to access, which in India has become more or less of a joke. Now, the effects we have seen that you lose your freedom of speech, you lose the education, the healthcare, the business, you're facing economic loss, especially after COVID, where all of us had to immediately shift to online platforms. Okay, I should wrap that. We had to shift on online platform for everything, for our work from home, for our offices, for our education, and now when people are used to this, when infrastructurally everyone is prepared to study or work from home, and suddenly when you wake up you get an order that internet is not active in your area. That is not a practical way of functioning. Because we are running late on time, I'll come to the alternatives we can use. The first thing obviously that we have to do is to come up with better guidelines. Not us, but the government. We can keep on sending suggestions. So that's the first thing that's needed. The other thing is that, even in the Anuradha Hussain case judgment, the main thing the Supreme Court pressurized on was that internet shutdown is a last resort. And that's not the case. I think in India, the judiciary, especially on internet shutdowns, has done some great work. It's all about its implementation in the real world, which is failing. And this is something in which policy organizations like us, where we hold a stance, we hold a bargaining power, should get involved and start working on things, because this number of 771 will keep on increasing. I have to wake up every day and upload at least 2-3 internet shutdowns that have taken place for no reason at all. So with that, I think I should wrap it up and
just a final point, it's that right now I think we discussed selective banning, for instance, but our stand should be that internet shutdown should not be happening.
Yeah.
Because the cost of human rights and human lives is so severe that it isn't, oh, what's the like numeric cost to it, it's different forms of human existence. People aren't able to get access to healthcare when there's violence going on in their regions. So I think what we especially stand for at SFLC is that this should not continue at all. And that's why we fight so hard, that's why we're filing in courts, that's why we're reaching out to organizations. We have a section called Lost Voices where we're speaking to people in these regions, we're trying to find out what's going on. Because once a region is cut out from the internet, you have no clue. There's no way of finding out what the people are actually going through. The government can say something, but even they themselves may not know from outside of it. So yeah, just a final point on this.
This was the end of the lightning talk. I think we can begin with the panel discussion.
So we have Mr. SQ Masood.
SQ.
Oh, so sorry. SQ Masood, RTA activist and FPR activist. So thank you for joining us. And so today we will be having a discussion, which is the search and seizure of electronic devices.
Yeah. So I can give you the introduction of the topic and of the speakers. So firstly, we are joined by 3 very renowned panelists in this room. Mr. S.P. Masood, Mr. Prasanna, and Ms. Kavita Iyer. Today we are going to speak about search and seizure of electronic devices and how they can be used against you, as in their effect on the right against self-incrimination. So before we begin, this is the right against self-incrimination is guaranteed under Article 23. The search and seizure procedures are available in several acts. Several special acts have different procedures such as PMLA, UAPA, and then there are general provisions. Mr. Prasanna has been working greatly on the search and seizure petitions in India, the Ram Ramaswamy petition. Ms. Kavita Iyer has been working with people, working with journalists, and herself is involved a lot on this aspect. Yes, but her experience with people who have been searched, such as she has been with Zubair, she has been closely working with such people who have faced these issues. I think she brings a lot of insights on the real world problems, not just the theoretical solutions to what we can say. I mean, a number of times when people talk about search and seizure, we just say, he asked for a warrant. That might not be the practical solution to it. And Mr. S.P. Masood is a social activist, and he has worked greatly on the FDR tech. And I think you might all know him from back in COVID-19 when his news got quite famous when he was stopped and his photos were taken. So yeah, I won't get involved into that much. I'll just begin with Mr. Masood and ask, how do you think surveillance is the first step before a search and seizure is being practiced? And what is the role of mass surveillance in diminishing this right against self-incrimination? If you can start with that, maybe begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Harun. So, as I am an activist and I am not a legal expert of technology, so I will try to give you perspective of the issues people are facing in Hyderabad, which is kind of enforcement agency. So, surveillance by the state is not a new phenomenon. This was in the decades, and police used to do surveillance state used to do surveillance on the people by different means. If we see the maintenance of maintaining of the criminal sheet or history sheet at the police station level, so the assumption is the person who is involved in a crime 1 or 2 times or 3 times. So police assume that he will be the person who can create issues in the community. So maintaining his personal records, his biometrics, his photographs, and targeting them time to time is the old phenomenon.
Yeah.
And especially targeting the vulnerable and marginalized communities, the Dalits, tribals, and Muslims. So the maintaining of charge sheet, history sheet, communal body sheet is held by the different high courts, especially the Andhra Pradesh High Court, as illegal and unconstitutional in view of the British judgment. So, if we come to the era of digitization, so this was 2014 when the MHA sent a request to all the states to modernize the police force and digitization of the records and database. So, this, of course, digitization and modernization of records give it good practices and good kind of decision-making processes, help in the decision-making process, all the things. But the digitization at the same time can create a discrimination, can create a harassment to the people on a click. And another side, digitization gave arbitrary and unlimited powers to the states and agencies to target a specific group or a specific person. So in that context, if I can say about the practices adopted by the Telangana police started in 2014, installation of CCTV, mass level CCTV cameras at every place. You can see in Hyderabad is the topmost city in India, installed huge number of CCTV cameras. And the real-time policing model adopted from according to the police, they have adopted from the New York Police Department. But we believe this is an international phenomenon. The same kind of digital or surveillance infrastructure we can see in China, we can see in Israel. So what they did is they have created a centralized database linking with the national database, which is called CCTNS. And the databases, they've incorporated different kind of databases, around 30 kind of databases they have incorporated in the software. And the software is linked to the app. App gives the police to access the data, all kind of data on real time. तो होता ये है कि आप देखेंगे कि लोगों को पास में लोग के they take the photographs, they take their biometrics, asking about their background, asking about their IDs, this kind of thing. So in this context, I was reading some reports earlier. So in 2021, I was subjected to the use of facial recognition technology on me, and I was coming from the market during the second wave of COVID. So police stopped me and they took my photograph. They asked me to remove my face mask, all these things, and I sent a legal notice to the Commissioner of Police asking what is the legal provision you have. So there is no response from the city police. Then I decided to challenge this in the High Court. I went to the Telangana High Court. So this is all about the surveillance part, digitization part. Apart from digitization, usually we raise our voice against other practices like Hyderabad police used to do by way of conducting coordinate searches in slums and poor neighborhoods, going inside the houses, asking for their documents, seizing their vehicles without any crime, and conducting mission Chabutra. Like youngsters used to sit on their verandas outside the houses. So they come and pick up them in the night by saying, we'll conduct your counseling also. So all this kind of surveillance linking with the centralized database can create an insecure atmosphere and can be used against particular groups and particular individuals. So with this initial remark, I stop here and we can speak more about it. Sure.
You have actually given few very good points to think about, and I'm keeping Mr. Prasanna for the last because the legal thing when it comes in, it's quite big. Before moving to that, before moving to how this was a personal experience from Mr. Masood and how he has faced this thing in Hyderabad, I bring the attention to Ms. Kavita, and the question on that headline is that you have obviously worked with a number of journalists and activists who have been facing this issue. They have had their phones confiscated. Can you tell me in the real world how they shared their experiences, and how has your experience been working in the field and working through surveillance and search and seizure?
Right. So I've been a journalist for 23 years now, and in the first 20 years as a journalist, I didn't ever have this experience of having to worry about my phone or my devices. And this is something that is only emerged in the last maybe about 3 or 4 years, where first it was the activists whose phones and devices were seized along with their arrests when they were arrested, whether it was for Bhima Koregaon, whether it was any other case in which there was either UAPA case or any other sedition case, etc. And in cases where the police are saying that there is reason to believe that there is evidence in the devices, those devices were seized. As we know now, in the case of Bhima Koregaon, there has been reporting across the foreign media following extensive studies by forensic experts in the West, who have said that it appears that evidence was planted on the devices of some of the accused in the Bhima Koregaon case. Now, why do I mention that at all is that, as we know, since in the past couple of years, a lot of journalists who have been arrested have also had, not even necessarily arrested, but who have been searched, or their houses were raided, or they don't even always call it a raid, they just sometimes call it a search, and they ask for devices to be given. And they ask for devices to be given voluntarily. They do not say we have, they don't always say we have a reason to believe that there is this particular thing that we will find in your device. There is no such indication of a crime, but that they say here we have a mandate to search your house, and so we will also search your device. So give us your devices. And there is no consistency in the way these devices are taken, and once they are taken, what is the procedure that is followed subsequently. There is absolutely no consistency. Now, I'm not a legal expert. Mr. Prasanna will speak more about that. But what I can tell you is that in the case of The Wire, as you know, The Wire editors were charged with defamation after the story about Meta and Amit Malviya. So Amit Malviya, the BJP spokesperson, charged filed a case against the entire Wire team for defamation, and it was a criminal defamation suit, and these people's houses were raided and their devices were taken. In that case, some of their devices were kept for about a month, 15 days, 20 days. There was absolutely no consistency as to how many days. None of them, we are told or we are taught that when you're giving your device, then you ask for a hash value. Now, we don't even know exactly what a hash value is. We just have a vague understanding that it is a numerical value that is given to the person to make sure that that device is not going to be tampered with later, and that nothing can be planted on it later. Now, exactly what is the technical meaning of a hash value? I hope that someday I will understand it, but I'm not technically qualified enough to understand it, although I have tried to understand it. So vaguely I know that if my device is being seized, I should ask for a hash value, so that is protecting myself from being deliberately incriminated by a hostile agency. No hash value was given in the case of the Wire editors whose devices were taken. In the case of, the same was the case with Zubair of Alt News, who I incidentally interviewed before he was arrested and then after he was released on bail. I think mine was the first interview, an extensive interview that Zubair gave was in fact to me at Article 14, and that was when he was still feeling the sense of, that there is a gathering noise of people from certain kind of political leaning asking for action against him and asking for FIRs against him. And I was asking him, so what are the precautions you are taking?
At that point, we still didn't think that. I mean, there was fear. There's fear at those instances about an attack on the person or on the family. So the precautions that we tend to take are precautions. Let me not tell anyone where I am. Let me not give my location details to anybody. Let me switch off my location and roaming on my devices so that my family is safe. So that if there's an attack on me by someone of a different political leaning, then my family is safe and I'm hidden or my family is hidden. Stuff like that. But at that point of time, still common journalists who are not necessarily writing about things that involve anything to do with national security, military. Typically, it was those journalists who would have had the sense of wariness that they have some information that might be considered or construed as being something related to national security. And so they might take precautions about how they deal with their devices and what is the kind of precautions they keep with their devices, whether they keep their personal stuff different from their professional stuff, like different devices. And it would have been that kind of journalist who did that earlier, but now all of us are being taught that separate your personal professional life. Not that when they come to us, we can say we will give you our professional device and not our personal device. There is no such distinction made at that time. When they say give the device, we are told don't give the password. I don't think that has any value. As a journalist, I want to be cleared. I want my name to be cleared. If someone is accusing me of something, when I give my device, I would say, here's the password, go read it, there's nothing in it. That would be my automatic, natural reaction to say that I'm absolutely innocent, there is nothing in my devices that should be that should cause me any fear, so go ahead and take a look. And here's the password. That is typically how most of us would react. But the law is that we don't have to incriminate ourselves and we are not required to give the password, but I don't think that is any protection really. It's not so difficult to crack a password of a phone or of any other device really. Also, this leads to a phishing expedition, which is what all of us are now discussing as journalists, that the case is X and they've done a search at my house or at my property for a case related to X. But in my phone or in my device, they don't find anything related to X, but they find something that is Y, which they're not currently investigating at all. But Y might be, for example, a phone call to a friend in an enemy country. It might be a discussion with a friend about a party drug. It could just be anything that can be construed as being criminal in nature. And that is enough, just the suggestion of something that might be criminal in nature is enough to have that sense of fear run through us now. And so as journalists, those who have been raided have had this problem. So just the latest raid was NewsClick, as you know, and in the case of NewsClick, about 45 journalists who are not even on the rolls of NewsClick, but who had simply contributed to NewsClick at one point or the other. Illustrators, reporters, writers, all kinds of people, engineers, all of them were raided. People from across the country. One girl who I know had contributed something about 6 years back and to NewsClick, and she was among those raided too. And their devices were returned the same evening. No hash value was given, but the devices were returned the same evening. Now, was it cloned and then returned? Nobody knows. Was it just returned, taken as an intimidation tactic and returned? Nobody knows. So just see the kinds of differences. So there are some cases where devices are kept forever, not returned. People are constantly filing a petition saying, "Mera ye phone वापस दिला दो, computer वापस दिला दो, काम नहीं हो रहा है." And I'm an independent journalist. I work with Article 14, but I'm also an independent journalist. And I cannot imagine not having my laptop with me. I walk around with I wouldn't even leave my laptop there with the rest of my bag. If this device was to be taken away from me for a month, I would just not be able to function. How do I continue working? It's a question of livelihood. Apart from the fact that they're intimidating me, the fact that there might be a possibility of malfeasance, anything. Apart from that, it's just how do you function without your devices? So these are the fears that journalists are having now, and we are all trying to take training and understand what are the precautions we should be taking regarding how we keep our devices, how we separate things in our devices, what is the encryption systems we should be following, what are the chat platforms that we should and should not use. it's all a blur, and it's quite confusing, and honestly it's quite unnerving at one level, and at a different level it's like, you know, they're coming for us anyway, so what the hell.
Ending it on a very, I won't say happy note, but okay. Mr. Prasanna, this is to you, Ms. Kavita here and Mr. Masood, both of them have spoken about there being no procedure involved, and the way police act when it comes to seizure of devices. I was having a discussion with one other journalist a few days ago, and she mentioned that her phone, when the police, it was a news click journalist, she contributed just 3 articles for them. And when the police approached her phone was kept on the sofa. They didn't even bother to ask. They just kept it, slided it in their pocket. Now, when it comes to the procedures of search and seizure, there is none so far. Whatever is there is not being followed. So what's your take on the whole fiasco around search and seizure and the current criminal justice system and the way it's being followed today?
So there are these petitions pending, one by Ram Ramaswamy and 4 other academics, that includes Mukul Kesavan and Sujata Patel. We had filed it back in 2021, right after there were a slew of raids following the Bhima Koregaon. A number of academics were raided and their devices seized. So that's when these 5 people really did, because of the concerns we filed back in 2021, highlighting that we tried to see what are the SOPs, manuals that the investigating agencies and the law enforcement agencies have. So in dealing with search and seizure of electronic devices obviously are not the same as any other search and seizure. Right? So we were startled to find that no LEA had any manual except the Central Board of Direct Taxes, that's your income tax department. They had a 2014 manual that was also fairly dated, but in fact the idea of asking for the hash value we got from there, right? So that's when, and for the first time when Siddharth's house was searched, it wasn't a search, in fact it was a production warrant, and we were there at that time. That's when we put it on record that you should be giving hash values at the time of search, at the time of seizure of the devices. Right. So what is hash value? I'll come to a little later. There are a number of questions that we posed to the court before the court in the Ram Ramaswamy petition. In fact, it was to come up yesterday.
Yeah.
It is now going to come up the coming Wednesday. Right. It is hoped that before Justice Kaul retires, right, because he had heard it before, so we want to ensure that before he retires in December as well, we want to ensure that there are guidelines given. That may or may not happen, but that's the hope. At least interim guidelines, because there is a huge void. In fact, CBI, right, the so-called quote-unquote premier investigating agency, has not updated its search and seizure manual for a decade and more perhaps now. Right. As I said, I broadly deal with 3 or 4 questions. Right. So first question is the power. What is the power? Where do police get the power to search an electronic device or seize electronic device? So usually that is accomplished under no power. If you say that there is no notice given, there is no warrant produced, so but they come and seize your device. So what does it, in the eyes of the law, how does that work? It is seizure by consent. Right, so you consented to the seizure of your phone. And that's, of course, that is that is how, in fact, that's what we've seen in a number of cases where, in fact, you go complain. In fact, let's not even talk about journalists and all these politically sensitive cases. Now, if you see a young man and woman, right, the woman's father goes and complains to the police. The first thing that the police does Get the phone of the boy, phone of the girl. Yeah. Right? No notice, no production warrant, no search warrant, nothing. It's all by consent. So that's how it gets. So let's say, but the power to get you to consent unwittingly is a power that the police always has and always has had, and that's the number one power, right? So that's. But in fact, in some of these other slightly more sensitive cases, and perhaps people most troublesome citizens, they do actually issue the warrant, issue the notice in the case of the wire. In fact, in all of the editors and journalists, they were issued what are called 91 notices. That's 91 under the Criminal Procedure Code. Please don't note it down. In a year, in a month or so, we are going to have a new Criminal Procedure Code, so the section will change. So there's no point. But under Section 91, it is. So under Section 91, interestingly worded, whether either the court or the investigating officer can ask you to produce a thing or a document. Right. So a few things about Section 91. The first thing is that if you are named as an accused, no 91 notice can be issued. This follows from the right against self-incrimination principle. In fact, they say that because we have a enumerated right against self-incrimination, that you cannot be a witness against yourself. You cannot be compelled to be a witness against yourself. From there on, there's a Constitution Bench judgment of the 60s called Shamlal Chokshi in state of Gujarat. And then later, even more fortified in the 1980s judgment by Kuttan Pillai versus Ramakrishna. These two have said that if you are a named accused, right, in a criminal proceeding, so there is still a grey area whether that extends also when at a stage when a charge sheet is not being filed. So an FIR is filed where you are a named accused. Whether a 91 notice can be issued to you is a little bit of a grey area. That's one question. That's one issue. There's also a second issue. That is whether, because this is Section 91 itself says a document or a thing. So which means there has to be a specific description of that. That is, 91 is not the power by which you can raid a place and then search and rummage whatever you want and take it. Right? 91 is where you specifically describe, I want this document, and take it. A mobile device, because it contains hundreds of thousands of documents, your personal correspondence, right? Your pictures, your intimate photos, maybe intimate communications that you've had, right? And privileged communication that you might have had with your lawyer, which no court can even summon, right? The communication that you've had with your doctor, no court can. Spousal communication, again, courts cannot see into what is the correspondence between the husband and wife. And privilege, as far as journalists goes, because there is also source privilege, which is not necessarily recognized under the Evidence Act, but we have Supreme Court judgments that have recognized this source privilege. Right? So when mobile phone can contain all this kind of privileged and personal information, whether that can be covered under the description of a document or a thing which requires certain specificity under 91, that's one issue. So let's assume that it can be covered. Let's see what, because when the police comes and they have a 91 notice saying that you give me a device, right? You're not going to be able to reason with them academically whether this can, whether a document or a thing can cover a device, right? So there is no ruling on it. Hopefully, some of these cases, Ram Ramaswamy and the Foundation for Media Professional Cases will throw some light. But before that, when it comes, so when the police come, so at least make sure that they are able to tell you, you are actually giving away only the things that they have specifically asked for. And if they say mobile phones, say mobile phones. You don't have to give your tablet away, right? If you say that, we've said mobile phones, tablet is included, you said tablet is not included, you need to be specific. And in one of the cases, in fact, maybe when we resisted, we went back, changed the 91 notice and came a couple of hours later to include that. Right? So to try and say, because otherwise it will go as a consent.
Yeah.
And you have fewer rights over what you can ask, but you consensually given that. And second, passwords. That's another question. Right? In fact, password, where you are asked your password to actually verbally communicate your password. Whether the police have a right to compel you to have any verbal communication at all, that's the right against self-incrimination. Right? Verbal communication is testimonial compulsion. So again, that's another question that arises in this petition. But again, if your 91 notice does not say divulge your passwords, don't divulge your password. Right? So again, they said there was no password. They went and changed. When they did, they made all these changes to the 91 notice and came back. Right? So this is what. So you at least if they are into your house, they're going to keep you there for the next 6-7 hours. You may as well have them do a little more work. So that's 91. So the other, that's under 91, it's called a production warrant. Although we say search and seizure, that's not such search. Search is under another provision of CRPC. But what is very interesting about the search and seizure provisions is that the search and seizure provisions under the Criminal Procedure Code were, the constitutionality of those was challenged in 1954, as far back in 1954. And an 8-judge bench upheld the search and seizure provisions in the CRPC. There were 8 judges at that time, it was the full Supreme Court. The Supreme Court only had 8 judges. It was MP Sharma versus Satish Chandra was the case. And the reason why they upheld is that there was no fundamental right to privacy. And it was that 8-judge bench decision which gets overruled by the Puttaswamy. That is why we required even the 9 judges. Right? So now the question on whether we have a fundamental right to privacy has been settled by Puttaswamy. But the question on the constitutionality of the search and seizure provisions is still at large. Right? So in fact, the Foundation for Media Professionals case specifically challenges the search and seizure provisions. Ram Ramaswamy only seeks guidelines. We were involved in it, so that was a bit too late in the day to say that the police don't have search and seizure powers at all. Guidelines would probably do that. But there's another flavor to say is that search and seizure provisions now have to go. So that is also at large. But the most startling thing is that in the Criminal Procedure Code that we have, in fact it was a 1973 Criminal Procedure Code, it was a copy-paste and a bit more from the 1898 Code. 1898 was a pre-constitutional British era legislation. And even there, so any document or thing cannot include any post or telegram with the Post and Telegram Authority. So there is 91, 92, 93, 94. Right? So there was, in fact, the police can't ask for a postal or telegraph authority to turn in that document without a judicial warrant. So it was a British era legislation where private correspondence and its exalted nature was recognized even by the colonial government. In fact, the British Parliament debates on the 1898 Code. I just hope that we are going to have at least as much deliberation. In fact, there was a very deliberated, the deliberations and the discussion there, the British Parliament in drafting, in getting the 1898 Code, we hope we get that for the new procedure. So as far back that we have private correspondence being also recognized. So all of these questions, there are a few more questions as well, but I'll probably deal with in the second part.
Sure. Before I ask any question,
I have a question.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if I remember right, in the 2021 petition, was it the Delhi High Court that was it the Supreme? It was the Supreme Court that said that asked the Delhi police to file an affidavit saying is it protected or is it not? So can you tell us a little bit what the police affidavit, what the government affidavit really says?
So, first government affidavit said, one, see, law and order is a state subject. You get all the states to first before we take a charge position on it. And without prejudice to that, we also say that, see, we don't need any updating. All of the provisions that we have, they take care of it perfectly well. No further guidelines required. No lacuna are there. We have this CBI manual. It has detailed thing on search and seizure, but nothing on electronic devices. In fact, we've seen as far back of 2011, once, in fact, when we had pursuant to a Delhi High Court's order, when the police had to seize pirated material from some of these Lajpat Nagar shops and all that, some of the police actually, in trying to seize and seal it, punched a hole through the CDs and then put the jute string on it, right? So that's the kind of that's as recent as 2011 it was. So when the police is at that level, we do not have SOPs, and they came and said that what we have is sufficient, and the Supreme Court wouldn't have any of it, and they said you needed to, at a higher ranking official will need to put a better affidavit and also fine the government of India 25,000 rupees.
So the first affidavit actually did say that the academicians don't have the right to proceed, right?
No, they didn't say academicians don't. They said that we have the necessary guidelines.
We can see.
We don't need to go in a PIL jurisdiction here. If there are specific cases that come to the court's attention, we can.
So isn't there also a Delhi High Court judgment of later, sometime in 2022, that said that devices can't be forcibly taken?
Well, there are the news laundries raid, so that one went, and it was largely against not having to divulge or disclose the details that you find in the devices. See, the reason why this is also becomes a problem is that the device has a lot more information. It becomes a roving and a fishing inquiry by the authorities, right? So you never search a place, or you never ask for a thing in the hope of finding evidence. You will need to have sufficient material by either the complaint or the previous investigation to indicate that, see, there is reasonable reason to believe that this particular evidence is in the possession of this particular person or in this particular premises, right? But now that is inverted to say so now I know this person has this treasure trove of information in the phones. I have some random complaint written in by some additional secretary based on secret inputs. Now I get all the information and let me see now what I can find. Right? So that's not how criminal investigation is supposed to work. So this is another, there are also other structural issues. So how do intelligence and criminal investigation agencies, they need to work? There are other structural issues. It's not just a privacy or this is a governance issue. Right? So how do we imagine the relations between some of these entities?
I have lots of questions. Should I just go on?
I just had one question before you enter. See, one.
It's too cold. Can you turn down the temperature?
I switched it off.
It's off.
This is not 22.
Is it 22?
Is it?
I switched it off.
Yeah, I think we can just increase the temperature.
So because I'm coming from Delhi, I don't have the protective smog cover.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that we have seen a lot is whenever there's a raid or there's a notice that comes to you, or 14, 15 policemen come into your house and demand something, they not necessarily talk about which law empowers them with this warrant, which law is giving them this this whole idea. And as you have also said that the CBI has a different mandate. That if you are being searched and seized, your devices or anything is being seized under UAPA, they have a different thing. They have different procedure for PMLA. So, what recourse does a person, a normal person, would have? Normal means regular.
To the best of my knowledge, it's the same procedure.
It's the same procedure. What we have seen in PMLA and in UAPA, that there's in UAPA there does not have to be a warrant. In PMLA, the warrant it has to have a notice, but a warrant is not needed. In others, income tax, there has to be a long list of what's needed, what are the procedures that's to be followed. But on very rare occasions, even with these ED raids, even with these UAPA raids, when it comes to the ground, there is no procedure. But when it comes to the law, even when it comes to the ED raid, for instance, there has to be a procedure that needs to be followed. So a person who's being raided, how does one respond to that? How does this confusion end that, okay, we don't have something like Miranda laws here, Miranda rights, because we are not spoken that you have right to remain silent, you have right to do this. That thing is not being done. So how does one person who's being searched remove this confusion of the law, first thing, and what are the rights that they have?
Right, so see, actually, I don't want to venture into that kind of legal advice, right? So, in fact, it's important, but I don't think we have the scope to cover it, all the safeguards that need to be taken, right? But the general, one broad statement I can certainly make is that you try and record all your questions in writing. So, if there is a production warrant, you can reply to that warrant saying that I've given you these devices. I specifically asked if you are able to extract, clone the devices and get the hash value report prepared right away. You have said no. And I've also specifically asked when you are cloning the device data, right? Usually what happens is that when the device gets seized, it is taken to a forensic facility where there is a forensic cloning of the bit by bit cloning of the entire data of all the storage media in your devices get run. At that time, the hash value also gets computed. So what is a hash value is that, see, it's a shorthand. So where you have, let's assume you have a long string of characters, and there is some computation method which shortens it into a smaller string. So if you are, for example, your URL shorteners, bit. Right? So it's just one kind of coding. So similarly, these hash algorithms, there are MD5, SHA-1, SHA-2, all of these algorithms, create a smaller string of data when you're given a binary large data object. Right? So what it says is that, so when the larger data gets tampered even a bit, there is one new file added, you cannot generate this. If you again generate the algorithm, the hash that would come up will not match the previous hash. That's when you know that it's not being tampered. So why is it important that it not be tampered? So it is for example, even when, let's assume we don't have electronic devices, right? You have stolen a gold chain from her, and the police come and seize the gold chain from you. They still need to give a panchnama with a seizure memo saying that, see, this is now sealed and kept in this bag. And the seal will be opened before a court, or when the examination is done for other investigation purposes. So all of that, and when is it examined, before who it is examined, all of that also gets documented and produced and proven in trial, right? So for the electronic equivalent here is the hash value. Is to say now you generate hash value at the time of seizure. So at every time of examination, you similarly, every time the device changes custody, right? So you are from the police officer to the forensic facility, from the forensic facility to the other person who is actually examining the contents of the device. So as the custody changes, you actually keep changing the hash value, keep generating the hash value to ensure that there is no tampering. And similarly, at the time of the trial, you again, before the magistrate or the sessions court, you again generate that hash value to show that, see, as a police officer, I have done my due diligence to show that there is no reasonable probability of this having been tampered. Right? But you still, as an accused, if you still claim that no, this has been tampered, then the accused will need to discharge that burden. But if the police officer is not even able to establish that he has taken even these basic precautions, then there is no burden on the accused. Right? So then, because at least until this procedure code, there is a certain element of doubt that we have with taking whatever the police says. In fact, that's why we say beyond reasonable doubt and all of that. If we have to believe the policeman all the time, we could just say that, okay, he has accused me and I go to jail right away. It doesn't happen. And the point was that you try and record all this, these questions, right? I'm sure that they will not be giving you answers, but just put it in writing that you actually asked these questions, and that's it.
Mr. Masood, you have actually interacted with police now. Yeah, please go ahead.
So apart from tempering the devices, तो एक इशू जो है आमतौर पर लोग फेस करते हैं. I think in 2007 when commercial blast took place, and after that police arrested against us. तो police came and arrested me. और मेरे मोबाइल में आज सुबह से जो कॉल थे, like I called Harun, so they asked me about Harun and they picked Harun. So the misuse of the digital devices for creating a large conspiracy idea. So this is also a
So in fact, that is why that gives them a treasure trove. They can
exactly.
And they don't even have to worry about this. In fact, and the police should actually be worried about how this is mixing so much noise with signal, right? You might have called your travel agent, you might have called your grocer, you might have called anybody, right? And they'll all be picked up. And that's all actually waste of investigators' time. Like, assume that you are parts of some conspiracy or bazaar, right? So, but yes, it's still waste of taxpayer resources, all of that. There is also a public interest in ensuring that the police don't misuse this.
Yeah. I think out of the people sitting here, you have the most interaction with the police. So, in this scenario at least, not as an advocate, we have that a lot. So, how have you seen this thing panning out? How have you experienced this search and seizure thing panning out, especially in the state of Telangana? Do they even listen to people asking for warrant or asking these questions? Does it happen, or it's just a waste of time?
See, with respect to the searches, like they used to do it during the coordinate search. So they come and cordon off a complete totality, around 200 to 300 police personnel, और हर घर में जाके they will ask for their personal documents and vehicle documents, all this thing. And we ask them, okay, do you have any such warrant? So this is no. And I finally asked to the Commissioner of Police, asking under which provision you are doing this, and do you have any kind of procedure or warrant issued before the conducting searches? So he replied, under 94 CRPC, we are involved to do these searches, and every time before deciding the legality, we get information from a police officer that we have to conduct searches there, and after going through with the material available, the district magistrate or executive magistrate issues warrant. So the question is, okay, there is a power under section 94 CRPC to conduct searches in case of stolen property, fake currency, all this. So is it section 94 empower police to conduct mass searches in a locality? This is not so there is no standard practice in any way. Like if you speak about the Delhi case after 2019 riots.
Yeah, I was one of the people involved.
Yes. So they used FRTZ.
Yeah.
They have used FRT, identified few people, hundreds of people they went to their houses, they seized their mobile phones. फिर again, as I said कि जो ना mobile phone में जो ना हारून से regular बात होती थी, who is हारून? So they went to the हारून place. उनको arrest किया, उनके through फिर they went to another person. So this is the best practice they do.
Any other questions from the panelist? Or
so there was one thread that I wanted to pick up on from what Masood had said in the first round of his comments.
Yeah.
So about digitalization, right? And that will also took from the internet shutdowns and all that, right? So there is something that we may have to think about is what everything preservation of non-digital modes of transaction. Right? So you cannot make digital only. Right? So payments, for example, cannot be digital only. Boarding an aircraft cannot be Digi-Yatra only, where you need to give your face, right? And internet shutdowns, right, in many ways has shown us how ground journalism, field journalism is vanished, right? So we don't, we didn't have internet in the 90s, the 80s, right? So we still have journalism, there was conflict reporting, right? And now, because we have to be realistic, right? So these kill switches are there with the government, right? If these kill switches are there with the government, they will be used. If not this government, another government will use it. So, and if that is the case, we need to, as citizens, we will, because these new tools are there with the government, the citizens will also need to develop other tools which can either circumvent or bypass these kill switches. And that would probably require that we have enough. And in terms of devices, again, so how to ensure that we have non-digital modes of working, so that when the devices are seized, right, they're gone for months. In fact, in the wires case, it was 9 months before they were returned, right? And that was after we went to court. There was a court order. They went in appeal. The appeal failed. It's only after that there was 9 months. So preservation of non-digital modes of transaction, the right for that is a cause that is worth fighting.
Because I do have a number of questions, but we are running out of time. For the last few minutes that we have, I'll open the questions to public. If they have anything to ask, they can surely ask, please. And you can also direct the question to any of the panelists.
Yeah, so actually this is a question for everybody here. I work with Internews. Internews is a media development organization that is in the middle of both sides, right? So we work with journalists and we try to tell them how they can prevent surveillance and how they can work with the system in their favor rather than against them. While we also work with digital human rights defenders and people on the ground, telling them that this is not going to happen in legal terms because you can't fight a 100-year battle. But there are some operational things that you can change, and maybe that will make your life a little bit easier. So as an organization that works in this space, what are the things that you think we can do to kind of encourage people towards a safer place? Is it capacity building? Is it, talking more about rights? Is it forcing people to kind of, change the way they work? What can we do as an organization?
So I was telling Akansha earlier. Warrant that says this device will be searched, and not any device will be searched, and all devices will be searched, and all devices will be seized, and like Prasanna was saying that they go back and they say, okay, here's a tablet also, not this random fishing expedition, but that we should as citizens ask for policymakers to draft very clear specific guidelines on how search and seizure of digital devices can and should be done, when they should be done, when they must never be done. what are the minimum conditions required for the device to be taken at all. Everything from hash value to what is the time that they keep it with them, when they clone it, when they return it, whether there should ever be a circumstance where the party is required to go back to court and say, return my device. I think we need very, very specific guidelines. This is not so difficult to do, right? This is not beyond the realm of imagination. This is something that we can think of.
In fact, the specificity you can get at the app level. For example, if there is an accusation that you are conspiring with somebody else in a particular WhatsApp group to wage war against India, then all that the police have to look at it, whether you are a member of that WhatsApp group and what have you said in that group. Right? They don't have to look at
anything else,
right? So what are their right? So that's
simple enough thing to ask for.
Yeah. But there are, see, again, it's not going to be, so there are going to be a taxonomy of offences. For example, sometimes we want to know if your device has Pegasus, right? So the examination that will be incurred in that kind of investigation will be different, where the device is the target, right? Where the device only has, the contents of the device only has certain evidence of something else, then that guideline there would be different. So therefore, there are some complications there, but 90% of cases will fall certainly, particularly when journalists are raided.
But you're presuming here that as citizens we don't have the right to say my phone must not have spyware.
That's different. No, but if there is a criminal investigation, for example, I go complain tomorrow, I file an FIR.
Anything found by spyware should be illegal.
I file an FIR that the government of India has illegally installed spyware on me. The police will still need to examine my device for that. See? That's why we don't file an FIR. There's another.
Apple received a notice for suggesting that there were.
Yeah, that's right. So in fact, see, now that the other problem now is that, see, when you make a complaint, in fact, in most sexual assault cases, where the complainant's device is the first thing that gets seized.
Yeah.
In Tarun Tejpal's case, it is the complainant's device. In fact, the defense built its entire case on the contents that were found in the complainant's device. Right? There is another legal acumen there, whether, for example, complainant's device has so much else. The prosecution is not relying on it. So the accused be given access to that information that the prosecution has collected, but is not relying on it. But shouldn't have collected, but still collected, but is not relying on it. So there are many questions there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are a number of cases recently, even I had worked previously on such cases where the person was just arrested for being a part of a Telegram group, never texted on that group, but arrested and was charged under terror also.
Well, see, there are going to be, in fact, to use a non-traceable IM like signal may become an offence in the newly proposed legislations of IPC. Yeah, because it's like you have something to hide.
I was going to ask you, I made a note of that, and I'm sorry I slipped asking you that. I'm sorry, do I have the last 2 minutes?
Yeah,
so, if I remember correctly, in Zubair's case, the fact that he had taken one phone, which was a recently changed phone or something, I don't remember exactly, but that some old phone he no longer had, and he had a slightly new phone, which is the phone that was given. And then the police suggested that he had something to hide, which is why he had format the earlier phone or something like that. So then so I'm formatting my own phone because I feel like, and because I'm not required to self-incriminate, but then the police will still say that, oh, you have something to hide and that's why you did that. I mean, how is that acceptable?
The only people who can legitimately exercise privacy are those who donate electoral bonds.
So better
that's if you have VPN on your phone. That's
I think we have 2-3 minutes. We have space for one last question if there is, or we can wrap it up. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for attending this discussion. It's been a really helpful thing. I think it will be the base of a number of projects and discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this insightful session and wonderful insights. So now we have a Museum of Digital Society, an exhibition by Digital Empowerment Foundation till 3:45 p.m. Alongside the exhibition, will be also be serving till tea till 3:45. The request is gathered on the ground floor at 3:45. To visit tea works, where we will be visit tea works and getting a tour of India's biggest prototyping center. At 5 p.m. we will be viewing tea hub stalls. We would request you to gather back on first floor at 5:55 p.m. for a conversation with Sir Uncle Mirza, an Indian screenwriter and film director. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.